Mr. President, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, this conference has highlighted that tackling pollution in all its forms lies at the heart of Agenda 2030 and is key in our struggle to eradicate poverty. Pollution affects all our nations and all segments of society, but it is clear that socially and economically disadvantaged groups, especially in urban centers, are particularly vulnerable to chemical contamination and atmospheric pollution. Universal access to clean water and to the collection and treatment of residues and effluents remains a challenge in many regions of the world. These issues require our full attention both at national and international levels. As we gathered at UNEA, we remain convinced that the international community should find ways and means to intensify cooperation so as to address the many complex and interrelated challenges posed by pollution, both in terms of its causes and effects. Our nations have recognized at Rio+20 that promoting sustainable patterns of consumption and production is an overarching objective and essential requirement for sustainable development. SCP programs warrant our support as powerful tools to prevent pollution by generating less waste, disassociating economic growth from environmental degradation, and encouraging greater awareness and lifestyle changes. We must tread the paths to more environmentally friendly and carbon-neutral socio-economic development. Brazil has been doing his homework. The Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Health are working together to develop and implement health-related environmental policies that contribute to the implementation of the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm, and Minamata Conventions. MEAs are fundamental to the success of our endeavors. Allow me, Mr. President, to reaffirm my country's steadfast commitment to the implementation of the Paris Agreement and of the ambitious goals it has set in the struggle against climate change, with direct impact on the issues addressed at UNEA. Brazil is improving its pesticide regulatory standards and developing a regulatory framework that will set in place by 2020 comprehensive evaluation procedures and instruments for risk management of chemical substances. Last week, for health and environmental reasons, the Brazilian Supreme Court ruled on the banning of white asbestos and of products that contain this substance. Although air pollution remains one of our key concerns, it has been decreasing in the last 30 years as a result of the establishment of maximum ceilings of emissions for fixed and mobile sources and of a process of industrial deconcentration. This is a complex process as the management of air quality in my country follows a federative logic with responsibilities shared between federal, state, and local governments. As for the adequate management of solid waste, Brazil has opted to regulate reverse logistics through sectoral agreements that reinforce the required dialogue among all concerned actors. The Brazilian Ministry of Environment has signed 3 of such sectoral agreements on plastic packaging of lubricating oil, mercury lamps, and packaging in general. This policy also innovates by involving waste collectors, both in reverse logistics and selective collection. Marine pollution is another issue that requires our attention at all levels, both nationally and internationally. We welcome the consideration it is receiving here in Nairobi. Last June, at the UN Conference on Oceans, Brazil committed voluntarily to set in place a national program to monitor, manage, and preserve the Brazilian coastline in response to potentially damaging anthropogenic activities. It has also joined UNEP's Clean Sea campaign last September. We intend next year to set in place a national program to combat marine debris, which will include strategies to reduce land-based waste generation.